Hello and blessings, beautiful souls. Saravá and Axé to you. So what a day already. So I have been up since like the wee hours of the morning, well and truly before the sun came up. I had lunches made, breakfast sorted, and I was sitting down and just having a little bit of alone time. And then of course, everyone woke up and it was all like bells and whistles going kind of thing. But then the emotions started to flow and all of that kind of business. And I had to come up early because I realized at that point of the day that the upload that I made for my daily vlog, well, only 2.19 minutes of it was uploaded. And I'm like, what the fuck? And so I had about 7 comments with people like being very sympathetic to me going, looks like Mercury's got you under the thumb. So I'm here and I have to re-upload that video in time for today because that is today's daily vlog. So, so much to do today that the last thing that I need is to do a re-upload. It is so annoying when these types of things happen. And I'm still absolutely perplexed as to how it could happen because the entire video was in the timeline. The entire video. And all I did was what I usually do. And yet only the end of it was uploaded. Like, give me a freaking break.
Every night I'm going on the grid texting.
Right, so I had to go down to my tiny home and get a jumper because it's supposed to be like 25 degrees, but it feels more like it's 10 degrees and that's not very pleasing to me. I also had to get a muesli bar, and because I don't have a fridge up in my witch's cottage, I found this condensed milk. It's like the food of my people. I swear you'll never find a people more into condensed milk than the Brazilians, honestly. We love our condensed milk, but I just figure it's going to be pretty handy to have because it's got a long shelf life. I can add it to my tea. Covers 2 bases. It's not very healthy for you, but it is a solution that keeps me from going up and down, up and down, up and down every time I need to, you know, get some milk. But come winter time, it gets cold enough for me to leave my milk outside and for it to be refrigerated. So that's going to be fun. Right, so today's video was inspired by the lovely Thorn Mooney of Drawing Canaz. She is here on YouTube and she recently made a video on, well, I guess to summarize it and put it pretty plainly, it was just bad books. And it was the fact that bad books are consistently recommended in and around social media and in other circles, etc, etc. I will link the video in either the cards up the top or the description box below. But I wanted to speak on that a little bit because at the moment, my book club and we are together reading Weave the Liminal by Lara Tempest Zarcroft. And this morning I had an experience where I read something that triggered such a response from me that it inspired me to make this video and also credit Thorn because, you know, it's really, really a great example of what she was talking about. I just wanted to say that before I launch into this rhetoric, that I'm not coming at this from a place of malice. I'm coming at this from a place of well-meaning, and I really would like to talk about this because it is something that is directly impacting me, and as such, if it's impacting me, then I would like to speak on it. The opinions that I have cultivated today regarding this subject may appear morose at best, so just be prepared. I feel, sadly, that literature today is becoming spiritually moribund. So today, as I was doing my usual book club live chat about this book we are reading in March, which is called Weave the Liminal by Lara Tempest Zarcroft, I came across a passage in my perusing of the actual text, and it emotionally triggered me, it intellectually triggered me, and it culturally triggered me. Okay, so rather than share with you the whys and the hows of why I was triggered, how I was triggered, which has a lot of bearing on who I am, where I come from, my culture, my positioning in just about everything, I don't want to share that because I don't believe that that would be helpful. What I do want to share, however, is that I absolutely love literature. I love books. I have had a love affair with books, like I'm sure many of you have. Oh, for so long. I come from a family of readers. I was read to as a child. I picked up books early and I made reading a habit when nobody else around me did. And I just love to read. I love the way that a book can sort of move through you. I love the way that it can open up your perspective. I love the way that it can inspire and incite this creative response, or create a dimension in your perspectives on things and just open up your mind and just get you to think. But more than anything, I love how we as consumers of books, we have this divine right to critically assess what it is that we are reading. And it is helpful to be able to critically assess what it is that you are reading, because what happens when you critically think about it, you are then able to partake in a larger conversation, not one that pertains to belittlement of authors, not one that incites any kind of nasty to and fro. That's not what I'm referring to here. But what I'm talking about is being able to give the author who created a particular work that may have been unsatisfactory to you for whatever reason, but to be able to give that author a review, and for that author to be able to read that well thought out review and to be able to shape his work or her work as a result of that review. Because as a creator, if you receive enough of the same feedback on something, then you do modify your approach to things. And when it comes to authors, what they're doing is they're sharing their creative craft with you and they're hoping that it is well received. But when it comes to reference material specifically pertaining to the subjects of witchcraft, Wicca, esoteric materials, occultism, and so many other delicious topics that we as witches love to consume, when it comes to that type of material, being able to critically think about what it is that you're reading, being able to have the confidence to openly speak about what it is that has dissatisfied you about a book, can help to open up constructive conversations as opposed to unconstructive conversations. Now, with the rise of books these days and the demise of bookstores across the board, it is more and more important to be able to really treat books as they are sacred, and to be able to have the respect to critically assess what it is that you're reading, to be able to absolutely research what it is that you've read that maybe just doesn't sit well with you, or to look at fact as not so much fact but personal perspective, and being able to cross-reference that personal perspective with a wealth of resources that are available at our fingertips because we have access to the internet. It's never been easier to critically research something, to try and find some backing to what it is that you're reading, to explore those very elements that just don't sit well with you. And while today I had an experience where I was emotionally triggered by what an author presented in her book, I didn't go on a rampage about it. What I did was I researched, I looked into things, and I thought from a common sense perspective, and then I got on my book club and I shared the whys of the hows. I felt so upset, I suppose is the word. And the more I reflected on the things that I've said on both my Coven Patreon page and the book club today, because I had something to say in both regards pertaining to what it is that I read in this book today, you know, the more I said it, the more I understood something, and that is that I had a lot of emotion building up inside of me because of this, because it hit a nerve. And while I initially thought that it hit a single particular nerve, it in fact hit a totally different nerve, one of inclusiveness, the way this author chose to describe the whys and the hows of the way she went about titling things, it made me feel excluded, because I was the very thing that she didn't really take into consideration. Who I was, how I live, where I come from, the fact that I'm a traditional hereditary witch. These were things that were not included in her perspectives when writing about what it is that she wrote about in this book. And I was the very thing that she didn't take into consideration. So I felt excluded. And because I felt that exclusion, it manifested itself as so many different things. I'm like, this is poorly researched. This doesn't make any sense. Like a quick Google search on the UN website will tell you this fact is untrue, you know. And I went through this process of like, nah. And I had to do that for myself in order to get to the bottom of the emotion that I was feeling. And what I was feeling, it's a little literary shadow work, if you will. And what it was that I was feeling was this lack of inclusiveness towards me as I am, living and breathing the way that I live my life in this moment right now. It didn't take me into consideration, and it didn't take the many other people that are in my position doing very similar things, who have very similar backgrounds to me. It didn't take us into consideration. And, you know, that bothered me in a way. And then I started to find peace. And when I started to find peace, I thought, wow, if I hadn't taken the time to critically think about this, if I hadn't taken the time to indulge this level of emotional trigger that I felt when I read this particular passage, if I hadn't taken that time, I would not have had that experience today. I would not have been able to reach that level of understanding, and I wouldn't have been able to open up my mind in that way to get to the bottom of something that may have proved to be a problem or a reflex in future. And now that I've had that experience today, I recognize how that feels. I had this moment of discovery, personal self-discovery and growth as a result of that. And I'm able to now apply that same level of understanding, to acknowledge that feeling, to acknowledge that sensation in a different setting perhaps. And, you know, that was something really positive that came out of today and my experience with this book, when I found a few bits and pieces that just did not add up to me. And it's not personal perspective that I'm speaking of. That is not at all what I'm speaking of. It's the way that facts were presented and how easy it was for me to just Google it and find that certain statements were confused, unsubstantiated, and erroneous at best. And this was only a tiny, tiny, tiny little snippet of the book. So I've got to say this. I've got to say this to save this beautiful book and to make sure that the author, you know, is not harmed, or that this conversation isn't of detriment to her as a creator as a whole. I have not yet read the entire book, and I will continue to talk about this book. I will continue to talk about this book so that I can do it justice, so that I can do for you what it is that I'm asking you to do for everybody else, and that is to critically assess the literature that you are reading. So I'm having this conversation with you because I want it to open up that doorway for us. I consider you to be my friend, and I consider your opinions to be important. And I would hope that you consider my opinions to be important as well, because that is how friendships are cemented. And I respect you, and I hope that you respect me. And so when I ask for a good book review, when I ask for a good book recommendation, give me a fucking good one. Really give me one that knocked your socks off, not one that I see presented time and time again with a beautiful cover on social media, because chances are I've read that book, or I've heard all about that book from somebody who has read that book, someone whose opinion I respect, and I know that that's not the book for me. It's not that it's a good book or a bad book, it's just not a book for me. And that's another aspect. Not every piece of literature on witchcraft and said subjects is going to be for you. There will come a time where you, like me, need to branch out around, beyond, over and under that subject, because you're not going to get anywhere doing the same thing. looking for the same types of books, looking for the same types of resources. A wise man once told me that if you do what you've always done, you will have what you've always had. And there always comes a time where you need to go to a more niche direction. And if you want to learn about animism, you have to go through that avenue of anthropology and shamanism and so on and so forth. And you have to get really niche about your exploration of particular subjects. But for the most part, when you're interested in, you know, just supporting the beautiful creators and the beautiful authors in the pagan community, in the modern context, then you have to be pretty discerning and quite prepared to be quite critical about what it is that you're reading, because it is good for the soul to do so, it's good for the intellect to do so, and it helps to not perpetuate misinformation. And, you know, and that is important, because every single day, new witches are coming into this wonderful community of witchcraft. And what are they getting? They are getting the worst book recommendations. I'm sorry, but I feel like they're getting the worst book recommendations, or the same old, you know. And the old books, they're great, but they've been around forever, and there is better out there now. We've evolved past certain understandings. We understand things now a little bit more than we did back then. And so, you know, it's really important to be able to have these conversations, to have them openly, to have them respectfully, and, you know, to just employ a bit of tact as you are sharing your opinions on this subject. Because, you know, when it comes to books and when it comes to personal opinion, it is emotive. You are going to get an emotional response if you accidentally push too hard. That's what I'm famous for. I accidentally push too hard. It's a byproduct of being Latin and passionate about my opinions, and I could have done better there. And I've had that experience over and over again, and it's not something that I'll ever grow out of, I'm afraid. It's something that is ingrained in me because I'm Brazilian. It's as simple as that. So with all of that said and done, beautiful people, it is now late. I'm hungry. I have been all over the place today, and you have been all over the place with me pretty much. But what I wanted to say to you is that I hope I haven't offended you expressing my opinion in this way. It wasn't designed to offend or belittle any one author, any one book. That's not what I'm here to do, which is why I'm not naming the names of every book that I've read that's really, really disappointed me. Like, that's not what I'm here to do. It's not constructive for me to do that. What it is constructive for me to do is encourage critical thinking. What it is constructive for me to do is continue to critically assess what it is that I'm reading, and to determine for myself if I believe that it is fact or fiction, and to dig and to research and to find the answers in a way that is palatable to me, that is going to help me grow intellectually and spiritually. Simple as that. With all of that said and done, I'm wishing you so much love, luck, peace and joy. Please do take care of yourself. I've had an awesome day with you, spending this time with you, talking about this subject, which is quite delicate, with you. I hope it was well received. If you have enjoyed this subject, if you have enjoyed this vlog, please do give it a like, please do share it, give it a thumbs up, and do all those wonderful things, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And as per usual, I'll be seeing you tomorrow. See ya!